is our April 18th, 2024 Bowling Green, Warren County Planning Commission and our agenda tonight. So Mr. Peterson, if you would call the roll.
Certainly. Commissioner Drain, Commissioner Gay,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Starks, Commissioner Vitale, Commissioner Volkert,
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren.
Yes, sir. Commissioners, in your packets were the minutes of our April the 4th meeting. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we call for a motion, please.
So move. Second.
Commissioner Gay,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw,
Abstain.
Commissioner Volkert,
Abstain.
Chair Warren.
Yes, sir. Commissioners, in your packets, you have the subdivision site development plans for information. Are there any questions? All right, hearing none. Thank you very much. Mr. Peterson, we have any old business?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. We enter into our public hearing tonight. Mr. Moore,
Thanks, Chair Warren. I request that you order the
hand,
record.
pull your mic down. Sorry.
Is that better?
There
Yes.
we go.
I request that you order the record tonight include all relevant statutory and regulatory provisions, the Commission's entire file for each application on your docket, and the qualifications for each staff witness. And finally, I'd ask that you administer the oath to each of those witnesses.
Y'all swear to tell the truth? Thank you very much. Our first item tonight is Bristow Partners, LLC, care of Rodney Rogers, has filed an application to amend the general development plan conditions for 35.3 acres located at 0 Louisville Road, approximately 2,720 feet northeast of Lauren Avery Drive. The area subject to this application is on RM4, multifamily residential with the general development plan. Amy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me turn off this loop here. Is it already turned off? Well, I'm sorry. When did I get it together? All right. We had a pre-application meeting on January 26th for the property that you outlined. The current zoning is RM4. The current land use is agriculture, and the future land use is mixed use, commercial and high-density residential. And the applicants did supply a site plan for your reference there. The applicants are proposing to amend the development plan for 35.30 acres. The main purpose of the application is to increase the maximum number of dwelling units from 304 to 520, increase the permitted building height to 3 stories, and allow for multiple owners, while still allowing for singular management through an HOA. And the revisions to the development plans can be found on page 3 for your reference. Looking down to the development history, the area subject to development plan amendment was rezoned to RM4 in 2022 for your reference. And then looking at the bottom of the page, the proposal complies with the majority of the criteria assessed in the review process, remains consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan, and is generally compatible with the surrounding area. Therefore, the staff recommendation is approval pending any public hearing testimony and any discussion. That's all we have for a staff report. Can answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Amy. Commissioners, any questions for staff?
So we're essentially, the applicant is essentially looking to go from 2 stories to 3 stories in order to add the additional dwelling units, is that correct? And this is probably a question for the applicant. So ownership is struck through, and I guess they're going to have an HOA, correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right, very good. All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Commissioners, any other questions for staff? Thank you very much, Amy. Is the applicant or the representative here, and any comments?
Chris Davenport, 921 College Street. I swear to tell the truth.
Thank you, Mr. Davenport.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm here on behalf of Bristol Partners. Mr. Rogers is present. Mr. Jason Baker, the engineer with Bryant Engineering, is present. I don't really have much to add. I'm happy to answer any questions y'all might have.
So Chris, same color, all buildings,
Correct.
all same brick, no deviations?
We're just wanting to have more owners, basically.
I understand.
Yeah, so we
Understand
can
that,
get this
but so
project going quicker.
21 24-plexes is what it looks like.
Correct. Well, I haven't done, I'm assuming that's the math's
Well,
right.
that'd be 504.
Just be careful when lawyers start doing math.
I understand. And is the only amenity a pool and a clubhouse for 504 units?
That's correct. Now, there is in the back, if I remember right, when we rezoned this, there was a condition of connection to the park as
Park,
well.
yes, I do remember
Yeah.
that.
So those amenities remain the same. We haven't added or subtracted from those. Those are the same as they were when it was rezoned.
Will the clubhouse be expanded, the pool be expanded to cover 216 more units?
I could ask Mr. Rogers that. I'll tell you that the original set didn't have a minimum square footage of
Okay.
either one of those. I mean,
Okay.
I think the plan would be you build your church to Easter, so to speak, and I'm sure he'll try to build the amenities to serve the number of people.
Okay.
But there is no minimum in the condition.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Volkert. Commissioners, any other questions for Mr. Davenport?
So Chris, in the past, we've had this under singular ownership, which meant you had, some cohesiveness with regard to people taking out the trash and keeping it tidy and et cetera. The HOA is going to take responsibility for that now?
The HOA, but there's still singular management.
There's
Yeah,
still singular.
I'm gonna say, knowing the players involved, they're gonna hire Sky.
That's
will
most
be-
likely the
will be
case.
The management of all the
The-
units.
I see.
That the
So it'll
man-
act as a single ownership. to
So
the-
multiple owners, but a single manager?
Correct, and then the
Okay.
HOA is the funding arm for those owners to fund the management.
Got it,
entity.
okay, all right. And so, did you have that much parking already? So we're adding significant number of units, and it looks like the footprint's very similar, but there was enough parking
Yeah,
already?
the
or-
density in the four, when we were 2 stories, for this size property, this type of development, the density was actually pretty low. So with the 3 stories, I think we're at 14, which compares to some other, there were 17 in the area. So, I guess the easy answer is, yeah, we had enough as is to accommodate. And of course, as we go through the permitting process, if the parking spots aren't there, you can't have the bedroom.
Sure, okay, very good. And so, I would have the same question as Christian, we got 520 units, and so, would you consult with your client and just see do we have any assurance that we're going to have amenities to take care of 520 residents there?
I'm happy to speak with Mr. Rogers, but again, I'm not sure how I think in the past, at least I've never had a minimum square footage for a clubhouse or a minimum pool size.
Okay.
I think we pretty much leave that to the developers to make sure that it's adequate once they commit to that.
Okay.
Tim, I don't think you can get that answer.
Yeah, I don't know that you can legislate this. I was just kind of curious to see what their thoughts are.
Satisfy you. I mean, are there
It would
any
seem to
other-
me that the incremental cost of adding those amenities is significantly greater than increasing it, if you follow my line there. I mean, once you're committed to doing that, I'm not sure how much money you save by doing it halfway. You're already committed to that infrastructure. What is saved by trying to cheat that a little bit? But again, I'm not sure how we can legislate that.
I would agree with that. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Commissioners, any other questions for Mr. Davenport? Thank you, Chris. Is there anyone in the audience tonight that has a question or an opposition to this request? Matt, you're here, if you would come to the microphone, please. And Matt, I apologize, what was your last name again?
McCoy?
Matt McCoy, would you give us your address, please?
Yes, 9277 Center Point Drive, Westchester, Ohio.
Okay, you got the right hand up. And Matt represents Martin Marietta, and he had a comment he would like to make.
Yeah, so I'm the regional land manager for Martin Marietta Materials, Bluegrass Materials, and we run some crushed stone operations here in Warren County. And I just have a statement I'd like to read into the record. Though Martin Marietta is a proud member of the Warren County and City of Bowling Green communities, we're the owner of 955 acres in Warren County, and 186 of those acres are at 5905 Louisville Road. That's known as the Bowling Green Central Quarry. That property is currently zoned and permitted as a aggregate producing operation. We believe that we have a strong investment in the community of Bowling Green and Warren County, and that's well established that we are a long-term partner in the prosperity of Warren County. As a fully permitted quarry operation in the future, there will be ongoing mining and distribution activities, including but not limited to blasting, crushing, hauling, truck loading, and other ancillary operations associated with that quarry. Given the Martin Marietta Quarry is already zoned and permitted, we want to ensure that the Planning Commission and the developer are aware of our presence and current and future use of the property. We would ask that the Planning Commission consider requiring the developer to give notice of the existence of the quarry to the residential tenants and a future purchaser of the property.
Thank you, Matt. Ben, I'm going to refer to you or Hamp. Is this just a statement for?
I view this as a communication between Martin Marietta and the applicant, and I don't think it has any impact on the Planning Commission, nor does it call for a response.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. Thank you for coming down from Cincinnati tonight. Is there anyone else in the audience tonight that has a question or a comment regarding this request? All right, hearing none, commissioners would call for a motion, please.
Make a motion to approve the proposed general development plan amendment, docket number 2024-04 DP, based upon a testimony and documents presented in this public hearing. The proposed general development plan amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan, is demonstrated by its compliance with objective and action items presented in the staff report. Further, I also find that there have been many major changes of economic, physical, and social nature within the area of the property in question, and I request the findings of fact and recommendation include a summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Second.
Commissioner Gay,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Volker,
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren.
Yes, sir. The motion is approved, and it's Planning Commission final action. Thank you all for being here tonight. Our next item tonight is 2024-17 ZBG and 2024 VZ07, Miller and York LLC, care of Billy Miller, has filed an application for zone quarter of an acre located at 1242 Magnolia Street from RM3 Townhouse Multifamily Residential to NB Neighborhood Business with a general development plan. The applicant has also filed a concurrent variance application regarding the general side yard setback adjacent to a single-family residential use and the required incompatible land use buffer. Jenny?
I think you covered it. So we had a pre-application meeting back in January for the property over on Magnolia. The current zoning of the property is RM3. Current land use is commercial. And then the future land use map designation is mixed-use residential. And there is their site plan and also variance exhibit. It's a dual concept plan for you all to reference. They are proposing to rezone .24 acres from RM3 to neighborhood business in order to operate a retail service use, more specifically a salon or spa on the property. And they've also filed a concurrent variance application regarding the general side yard setback adjacent to single-family residential uses, and the required incompatible land use buffer. And those variances are referenced in that box on the left. Looking down to staff's recommendation, the proposal does comply with the majority of the criteria assessed in the review process and may be compatible with the surrounding area, but staff does have a few points of consideration that I'll point out to you. Specifically looking over on the middle of page 2 to the layout, lot sizes, setbacks, and existing structure. Setbacks will adhere to the neighborhood business standards set forth in the zoning ordinance except for the 10-foot side yard setback along the southwestern property line, the 25-foot building setback adjacent to a single-family residential use, and a 10-foot incompatible land use buffer for which the applicant has requested all those variances. The existing structure was permitted as a single-family residence and not as a commercial structure, and with that, staff suggested that the applicant incorporate an additional DPC requiring that the structure, meet commercial building code. However, this was left unaddressed. We will then look over to page 6, which has the points to consider for the variance application. And just to do a quick summary of those points to consider reference things like the minimum lot width in the neighborhood business zone, those variances that we discussed, and how those may be incorporated into site design, as well as the prior uses of the property. And then just the final point is that the circumstances are not the result of actions of the applicant taken subsequent to the adoption of the current zoning regulation from which relief is sought. The zoning and use regulations were in existence prior to the structure being constructed and the current commercial use commencing on the property. With that, looking back to staff's recommendation, it is for approval pending public hearing testimony and discussion of those points. With that, I'm finished with staff report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Jenny. Commissioners, any questions for this request?
So Jenny, if I'm reading this and looking at this correctly, if I look at the street that we're on, there looks
Yes.
to be 3 or 4 or 5 businesses that are
Yes.
surrounding it.
Yes.
And it looks like, so really what we're attempting to do here is they're attempting to clean up a business that's already in existence to make
Yes.
sure it just fits and with the right zoning.
Yes, so the current use of the property as a commercial business was not in compliance with the zoning. And so the request now is to make the property in compliance with the current use.
Okay. But with the setbacks and everything they're asking for, I mean, it's not changing everything that's already on the property right now, correct?
No, because the property was constructed with a single-family residential use in mind.
Okay.
So it was constructed with those standards, and it was permitted with those standards. And so with the current use being proposed and now in operation, they're in violation of those single-family standards.
All right, so the last question I have for you, you mentioned that it wasn't addressed in here about getting it to commercial standards.
Yes.
What is not at commercial standards that y'all are requiring?
Yes. So we do have an email from Scott Hunt, who's the chief building inspector for the city. He did mention a couple of things. So they do need ramps for egress, and then there will also be exits and emergency lighting. Signage will also be needed. Some changes to the parking configuration with one van accessible parking spot, things like that. So additional modifications on top of what have been permitted for the structure.
So nothing too out of the way structure-wise or anything like that, other than maybe building the ramp?
As of the email that we have, so I don't want to,
Sure.
if he does a deep dive, there may be more, but
Okay.
that's what we have.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Christian.
So
Mr. Graham.
as I look at the plan, it appears that both sides of this structure or this lot are businesses as well. Are they zoned as residential?
So if you look at the existing land use map, which will help a little bit with conceiving, the yellow is single-family residential. And so I believe that would be to the east, northeast. That is a single-family residential use, and so that's an incompatible land use with commercial. So that would be the property line in which they're having to get the incompatible land use buffer.
Got it, Okay, so is that currently being used as residential, or is it?
As far as our
commercial?
records reflect, it's single-family residential.
Got it, okay. And so the applicant will have to do these things, this ramp, the signage, the lighting, in order to continue anyway. Is that an enforcement that we need to put in the DPCs, or how do we proceed here?
So I believe it was suggested by staff as a precautionary measure since the establishment of the business was done without proper permitting. So it was just a precautionary measure on our part. It will have to be done, but and Rachel may be able to speak to more of this as well, but
I guess in the past, when we've had applicants who are seeking approval for a future commercial use, we've tied, if it's in a single-family or residential structure, we've tied a development plan condition saying that
I see.
the applicant would work with the building inspector to meet commercial building code prior to occupancy. But in this case, the building is already occupied by a commercial tenant, and the use has already commenced. So in this case, you may consider asking that they have a condition saying that they'll work with the building department to bring the property into compliance with commercial building code within so many days, whatever you all may find reasonable,
And we would just add that as a DPC?
if they're agreeable to that.
Got it, okay.
Yeah.
All right, very good.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Commissioners, any other questions? Thank you, Jenny. Is the applicant or the representative here who'd like to make some comments? Who's going to speak? Lindsay?
I will speak, but
All right.
I would also like Mr. Miller sworn in too as
All
well.
right, thank you. Your name and address,
Lindsay Hinton, 906 State Street, Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Mr. Miller?
Bill Miller, 236 State.
Thank you. You all swear to tell the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
So,
I'm Lindsay Hinton. I'm here on behalf of the
So I
applicant.
think Mr. Volker has a question and Mr. Graham has a question. So if you all just want to address the questions of,
I just think the glaring question is, are you guys good if we put something in the DPCs that 90 days you'll be in compliance with, 60, 90 days you'll be in compliance with all the things that bring it up to a commercial building?
Absolutely, and I believe some of it has already been completed.
Okay. Ham, what would you suggest, 60 days?
Probably 90.
90, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so can we add that?
or Mr. Miller, are you agreeable with 90 days to comply? Thank you.
Perfect.
You want a new DPC, Hamp, or you want to add it to one?
I don't believe I care.
You believe what?
I said, I don't believe that I care. It doesn't, I don't mean to be a smart aleck, it apparently sounds like that. Sorry. So why don't we just make it a new DPC number 7? And Rachel, why don't you recite what you all usually require on that issue?
Sure thing. So possibly something similar to within 90 days of April 18th, 2024, the applicant will coordinate with the city building department to bring the property into compliance with all applicable commercial building codes.
Mr. Miller, do you agree to those?
I do.
All right, thank you. Ms. Hinton, do you all have anything else you would like to add?
Not on the rezone.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. Is there anyone in the audience tonight that has a question or opposition to this request? Okay. We have two, for this application, we have two amendments. One is the zone change and then the variance request. So commissioners would call for a motion for both those, please.
I'll make the motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with the petition upon the general development plan docket number 2024-17 ZBG. Based on the testimony and documents presented in the public hearing, the proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objectives and action items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, I request the motion of the Further, I request this motion include the summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Second.
Commissioner Volkert,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Gay,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren.
Yes, sir. The zoning change amendment has been approved, and now would call for a motion, please, for the variance request.
I make a motion to approve the request for the variance presented in the staff report by the property at 1242 Magnolia Street, docket number 2024 V07. The testimony presented in the public hearing has shown that the granting of this variance will not adversely affect public health, safety, or welfare, will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, and will not cause a hazard or nuisance to the public, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulations.
Second.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Volkert,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Gay,
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren.
Yes, sir. Both motions have been approved, and the zone change, final action in 21 days unless a request is made to the legislative body to hear the item. Planning Commission final action for the variances. Our next item tonight is 2024-18 ZBG, Dexter Holdings Incorporated and Logan County Medical Associates LLC have filed an application to rezone 1 acre, approximately 1 acre is located on the southwest corner of Dishman Lane and Raintree Drive from general business to RM3 Townhouse Multifamily Residential with the general development plan. Ms. Hurt?
Thank you, Chair Warren. We had a pre-application meeting back in March for the property you just referenced, located at the southwest corner of Dishman Lane and Raintree Drive. And the applicants have requested to rezone the property to RM3 in order to develop the property with a maximum of 19 multifamily residential units. Looking at the zoning, you'll see the current zoning is general business. This zoning was established back in 2011, and the current use is vacant, and the future land use designation for the property is mixed-use residential. Looking down at our recommendation, you'll see that the proposal does comply with the majority of the criteria assessed in the review process, and we found the proposal to be generally compatible with the surrounding area. There are a couple of items for your consideration. The first of those items is located on page 2 under the surrounding density. We've just pointed out that the densities for the nearest residential developments, which are South Mead, so if we go back to the map here, South Mead would be the neighborhood to the south that's currently zoned RM3 in this area. So the density for that neighborhood is 3.49 dwelling units per acre, and then Woodland Station, which is the PUD zoned development to the east, that density is 7.05. The proposed density is 18.19 dwelling units per acre, which is more than 1.5 times the density of either of the nearby residential developments and does not comply with the suggested density that's outlined in HN 1.2. And then jumping to page 3, looking at the proposed open space. So the applicants did agree in their conditions to provide a minimum of 35% open space. This will include landscaped areas, drainage areas, and other general open space. And the Planning Commission should determine if this is a usable amount of open space and if it is of scenic or ecological value as suggested in LU 2.1.1. And so those were just a couple of points for your consideration. Other than that, our staff recommendation is for approval pending any public hearing testimony and discussion. That is all for the staff report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Hurt. Commissioners, any questions for the staff report?
So Rachel, your question or your, I guess your point to consider was whether the open space would be, part of that would be retention, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
I see, okay. Okay. And so just for my reference, what's the definition of open space? What does it need to have in order to be considered an applicable or a usable open space?
So there's not a definition necessarily outlined in the comprehensive plan, but one of the action items that's included for your consideration is LU 2.1.1. And if you're curious, let me find that. It's listed on page 24 of your staff report, just as a reference. And it just says that you should consider increasing, when we consider development, we should consider increasing or refining the standards for open space retention in new residential development to ensure an adequate share of such space is usable and of scenic or ecologic value. So there's not necessarily a definition of what that would include specifically. It's somewhat subjective, but essentially based on the proposed development, if you feel that they have provided an adequate amount that would comply with that action item.
And is the applicant would, I guess, this goes without saying, would have to comply with the landscape requirements, et cetera, already, correct? Okay. My other question would be for the applicant.
Okay.
Rachel, one question I've got is on DPC 7. The last sentence says facade colors shall be uniform or complementary. I mean, I interpret that they could look different. Is that the way you interpret, or they will be the same exact colors and scheme?
I would interpret it that it could be the same or colors that were complementary. That may be for the applicant to clarify here in just a minute.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Christian. Commissioners, any other questions? We'll call the applicant up here in just a minute regarding these two items. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is the applicant here or their representative?
Rodney McGahee, 2053 Dyford Road.
Swear to tell the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Rodney. I think you heard the questions on the number 7 from Mr. Volkert on DPC number 7.
Yes.
Would we be okay just putting a period after uniform?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
That's
great.
Okay.
We'll delete complementary.
Or complementary.
And Rodney,
Yes, sir.
think about, you are not a partner,
No, I'm not.
and do you have a power of attorney for?
No, one of the owners is here and he has, yeah.
All right, let's bring him up here just a minute, sir, if you would come. Yes, sir, if you'd state your name and address, please, sir.
Larry Smith, 841 Covington Grove Boulevard.
Mr. Smith, you swear to tell the truth?
Pardon?
You swear to tell the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith, do you agree in development plan condition number 7 to delete the 2 words "or complementary" from that DPC?
Sure.
So Larry, meaning the 3 buildings will look identical in color and scheme? Okay.
Hardy board and brick.
Well, just the same, yes, but the same color, same materials in all buildings.
That they're uniform.
That's
Larry.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And Tim, what was your question?
So Rodney, clearly you don't have the retention yet, I
So-
guess.
If I could, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So you're kind of leading me into the question, what are your thoughts on the retention basin? Where do you anticipate that being located? And-
So if you look at the top left corner of where the 3 buildings are, there's an area labeled drainage area, proposed drainage area. That's a small area between 3 pine trees and some sidewalks and 1 building. That is the area that is a detention pond, which will only fill up during a rain event and then meter water out so that it doesn't increase onto the neighbors. That's the only area that's in drainage, is that. Now, there's a ditch along the right-of-way out front, on the front of that row of evergreens and deciduous trees that's proposed, but those are the only areas that are drainage
Okay.
on the property. So it's a small portion of the green space.
Got it.
And that's another reason why we pushed those trees out further from the buildings.
Right.
Was to make a more accessible and usable open space, kind of like what's already there on the adjacent development across the street.
Okay, so it sounds like you're using the landscaping to complement
Yes.
this a bit, and that's what I was looking for. Okay, very good. Thank you, Rodney.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions for Rodney or Mr. Smith? Thank you all very much. Is there anyone in the audience that has a comment or a question regarding this? Don, you have a question? Okay. Hearing none, commissioners would call for a motion, please.
Make a motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with and condition upon a general development plan, docket number 2024-18ZBG, based upon the testimony and documents presented in this public hearing. The proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan. It's demonstrated by its compliance with objective and action items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further requests this motion include a summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Second.
Commissioner Gay,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Volker,
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren.
Yes, sir. The motion is approved. Final action in 21 days unless a request is made to the legislative body to hear the item. Any other discussion items tonight? All right. Thank you all, everybody, for being here. Commissioners, thank you for your time. Staff, thank you all for you. Matthew, are you enjoying your job so far?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. All
Good
right.
answer.
Do what?
That's a
That
good
was
answer.
That was more definitive than the last person that asked him that. I'll just say that. So
right.
there's at least improvement to
So we know he's teachable at this,
Yeah.
right?
Well, you're doing good on your emails, but you need to just check them a little better. All right. Thank you all for being here tonight, and we stand adjourned.